right, so your quiz is going to be on Monday. One thing that you're going to get before your quiz is a blank unit circle, just like the one that you have on the back of your notes. You can use that if you'd like. You can fill it all in. It will not be graded, okay? But you will get that, and if you want to fill it in and use it on the quiz, you can. All right? The only other thing you need to worry about for the quiz is this last part of notes. So here's an example up here, and it tells you kind of what to do, but we're just going to start with the first example. It says to solve each of the following over the interval from 0 to 360. When it's written like this means that 0 is included, but 360 is not. So we can go all the way up to like 359.9 degrees, but we can't be equal to 360. Round to the nearest tenth of a degree when necessary. All right. So if we're trying to find this is saying what is the angle that has a cosine ratio of negative 0.176. So it's like we're comparing the x and the r. When we divide that x by the r, we should get this answer. Let's just think of the unit circle for a minute. Right here, what's our value for cosine? 1, right? What's our value right here for cosine? 0. What's our value for here for cosine? -1. So this is a ratio that's really in between 0 and -1, right? So I know that this angle is going to look something like that. But this is not one of our special ratios, so I don't know exactly what it is. I can use the calculator to figure it out. First of all, go to your mode. Make sure that your mode is in degrees. So change that. If I want to find an angle, I have to push second cosine to get to inverse cosine, and then I type in that ratio. I push enter, and it tells me that this is my answer. We're rounding that to the nearest tenth of a degree. So what would it be? Just 100 degrees. So here's my first answer, 100 degrees. But there's another quadrant where cosine would have a negative ratio. See, I know right here, if I went all the way to here, this cosine answer is -1, and here the cosine answer is 0. So right about here, I would also have another angle. From here to here would work. I have to know what my reference angle is. The reference angle is 180 minus 100, so it's 80. So that means this answer would also have to be 80 right there. Well, I'm trying to find the answer for the angle that starts here and goes to there. So one of my answers was 100 degrees. My other answer is going to be 180 plus 80, and that gives me 260. Now maybe I'm not so sure about the 260. Well, I can check it. The way I can check it is plug it in. See if the cosine of 260 is pretty close to -0.1736. -0.1736, right? So we're pretty close. Why isn't it exact? What did we do a little bit ago? We rounded, so that's why it's not exact. Okay, the other way I could have thought of this is all students take calculus. I know that the cosine ratio is positive here and here. I have a negative cosine ratio, so that's why my triangles had to be here and here. I'm going to do this one that way. All right, so I have a negative tangent ratio. I'm going to use all students take calculus. I want to know which quadrants I should draw those triangles in if I have a negative value for tangent. Would it go in the first quadrant? No, everything's positive there. Second? Yes, tangent's negative in the second quadrant. It's positive here in the third quadrant, so I'd also draw it in the fourth quadrant. That's where my two answers should lie, in the second and fourth quadrants. So now I go to my calculator, and I do second tan of -0.3677. And it gives me this answer, negative 20.2. Now, the reason it gave me a negative answer is because it's trying to tell me the closest angle. The closest angle, the smallest angle, starts here and goes in the negative direction. That's what this negative means, is that it goes in this direction rather than that direction like we always go. So this angle right here is 20.2. This is not one of my answers because it's not in between 0 and 360. That's telling me the reference angle though. So how would I find the angle that starts here and goes around to there? Ashlyn? Good. So I would have to do 360 minus 20.2, and that's going to give me that answer for that angle. So 360 minus 20.2 gives me 339.8. So that's this angle here. Well, I also have to find this angle. Think about how you would find it. This is the reference angle, 20.2. How do you find that angle? Find it, and then I'm going to call on you. Brandon, what'd you get? Okay, 69.8. Did anyone else get that? No? What'd you get, Alyssa? 159.2. How'd you get that, Alyssa?
I did 180 minus 20.2.
159.8 then, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, got it? Okay. Looking at number 3 now. I have to change any code functions like cotangent, secant, cosecant. We have to change them into their reciprocal functions. So if I want to change this into sine, I have to flip this over. So to flip it over, it's 1 divided by negative 1.2238. And the reason that I have to do that is because there is no cosecant button on here. So I'm going to have to find this angle by doing second sine of 1 divided by negative 1.2238. And it gives me this answer. Once again, it's telling me the answer when I start here and I go in this direction instead of that direction. So it's telling me that this is 54.8. But that answer, that negative 54.8, that's not really the correct name. I want this name for it because our answer has to be between 0 and 360. Malasha, how do I find it? Right. And that's going to be one of our answers, 305.2. And that's approximate, so I use these squiggly lines for approximate. Which other quadrant are we going to use besides quadrant 4? How'd you know that, Emily? You said 3? Right, so sign would have to be negative here. So it's 54.8 right here. And then we find that by doing 180 plus 54.8. So 234.8. So those will be our 2 answers. Questions? All right. So now I want you to do just 4 and, let's do 4 and 5 on your own. All right, so just real quick, because some people are still confused a little bit on where to draw the triangles, just going to go through that real quickly, how I knew. We look at this. This is called the ratio. See, this might be like when we had radical 3/2 or 1/2. This is that ratio. If this ratio is positive, then we know that sine is the same thing as y. So I want to think, where are my y's positive? That would be here and here. I can also use all students take calculus, and I can think, okay, everything's positive here, sine is positive here, so therefore they're negative there. That's not what I want. I want positive, so it's up here. For this, I'm going to think of tangent, so I can do my all students take calculus. I want it to be negative now. So here and here is where it's positive, so these two is where it would have to be negative. Also, I know this is x and y, so to get a negative, x needs to be negative, y positive, or x positive and y negative. Okay? Make sense? Questions? All right, let's go to the back. The first four are just review, and I'm going to have you do those in just a minute. If you need to, you can practice filling in this unit circle, which I will have you, I'm going to do the first quadrant with you, but do you guys think you can fill in the whole thing on your own? Some people say no. Okay. Well, the way that you should start this, guys, is start with the degrees. So I should know this is 0 degrees, this is 30 degrees, 45 degrees, 60 degrees, 90 degrees. I always like to start with the degrees. I think that's the easiest way. Okay, so now this one is 60 degrees away from 180. So 60 degrees from 180 is going to make this 120. This is going to be 45 degrees. See how it's the same? Like this is 45, so this matches up with the 45. So that's going to be 180 minus 45 is 135. And then do we know what this should be? It's 30 degrees away, same as this, 30 degrees away. All right, so this is 150. Okay, this is 180, we should know that. Again, we're 30 degrees away. See, it goes 30, 45, 60. So that makes this 210. Then we're 45 degrees, so 180 plus 45. 180 plus 60. And then this is 270. And the reason it's 270 is because it's 390, so that makes it 270. And then I can go back here if I want. This is the closest one, so it's 30 degrees away from 360, that's 330. 45 degrees away from 360 is 315. And then 60 degrees away would put us at 300. Everybody understand the way the angles go? All right. So now you have choices. You can go to the points or you can go to radians. Okay, I'm also going to call this 360 degrees too. We'll do radians. So I know that I can call this either 0 radians or 2 pi radians. 30 degrees, what is it? Pi over, everybody? 6. 45 is pi over. 60 is pi over. 90 is pi over. 120. Now we get a little tougher. But see, 120 has the same reference angle as 60. So this has to be something with a pi over 3 in it. 135 has the same reference angle, so it has to be something with a pi over 4. 30 degree reference, it has to be something pi over 6. So now I just think about it. This was 60. 60 times 2. This was 45. 1, 2, 3 45s. This is 150. This is 30. 30 times 5 is 150. And then I know that 180 is pi. This again, a 30 degree reference, so it has to be pi over 6, something pi over 6. This has to be something pi over 4, something pi over 3. Figure those out, and then I'm going to call on you. Finish with that quadrant. Go ahead and finish that other quadrant. Dylan, what'd you get for 210? What is it? What's another name for it in radians? Good. What about 225? Cameron, what did you get? Good. What about 240? Devin, what do you have? This is right. Good. And then what's 270? Emily, do you know 270? Right. Okay, over here now. 300, that's 60 degrees away, so it has to be a pi over 3. 315 is 45 away, so it has to be a pi over 4. 330 is 30 away, so it has to be something times pi over 6. So start figuring out those. Abby, what'd you get for 300? You have to think 60 times what is, right, 5 pi over 3. For 315, Nathan?
7 pi over 4.
Right. And for 330, what do you have for that, Parker?
11 pi over 6.
11 pi over 6. Good. Okay, so these are all of the degree angles, and these are all the radian angles. Okay, now this point here is 1, 0. I like to fill these in next. 0, 1, negative 1, 0, 0, negative 1. Because that actually helps me to figure out these points. See, I can think of a 30, 60, 90 triangle if I need to. This is what I'm thinking of, is that's 30, because that's 30. So then I'm going to have this is 1, this is 2, this is radical 3, but then it's a unit circle, so I had to divide by 2. So now I know that my x right here is going to be over radical 3 over 2, and I know that the y has to be 1/2. Once I get this one, I know this one is just going to be this one flipped around. So now I know this has to be 1/2, and this would be radical 3 over 2. And then you should know the pi over 4, the 45 degrees. The 45 goes 45, 1, 1, radical 2, but we want that unit circle, so we want that to be a 1 on the radius. And so now it's going to go radical 2 over 2. And I can kind of see a pattern here. See how my x's are gradually getting smaller, but my y's are gradually getting larger? Okay, and now it's just kind of like, a lot of people call this the bow tie. Like, think of making a bow tie. Anything that goes along together, like all of these have the same reference angle. Oops, I went the wrong way, right there. So see how, ignore that one. These all have the same reference angle. So they have to have the same triangle values. So like I know this one is going to have to be 1/2 radical 3 over 2. And I know this one has to be 1/2 radical 3 over 2. But then I just have to worry about the signs. So like right here, is x positive or negative? X is negative, y is positive. So now I can go to my next group. Everything that has a 45-degree reference. I'm going to everything that has a 45-degree reference now. And they all have to have the same points because they're the same reference angle. So this is negative radical 2 over 2, radical 2 over 2. Let's take care of this first. This would be a negative x and a negative y. So this is negative radical 2 over 2 and negative radical 2 over 2. Let's see. X is positive, y is negative there. And this should be radical 2 over 2 and negative radical 2 over 2. Okay, so again, I went to everything that had the 60-degree reference. And now you guys finish it up by doing anything that has the 30-degree reference. All those have to be the same. So for this one, you should have negative radical 3 over 2, 1/2. Just curious. Here you should have negative radical 3 over 2, negative 1/2. Here you should have radical 3 over 2, negative 1/2. All right, so how does that help us? Well, now if I want to come up here and do this, life can be very easy. 7 pi over 6, I go to 7 pi over 6. Cosine is just our x value there. This is x, this is y. So this answer is negative radical 3 over 2. So if you want to take the time to fill out the unit circle, it's going to make the problems go faster when you take that quiz. But maybe you just want to stick with the triangles. I don't care. All right, so now do these. I'll do this one with you. Cosecant of 5 pi over 3. I go to 5 pi over 3. Right here it is. Cosecant is the reciprocal of sine. Here's my sine. It's y value. Remember, sine is y. Cosine is x. So I'm trying to do cosecant. That's the reciprocal of sine. So right here, I'm looking at negative radical 3 over 2, but we have to flip it over. So now it's going to be negative 2 over radical 3. Rationalize it, negative 2 radical 3 over 3. All right, you guys do those last two. Try to use the unit circle on it. Ethan Jocelyn, what did you get for tangent of pi over 2? It is undefined. Do you know why? Yep. It's y over x. So 1 divided by 0 is undefined. Cotangent of 7 pi over 4. What do you have on that, Colin? Okay. Let's do it together then. Cotangent is going to be x over y. So I go to 7 pi over 4 and I'm going to do x over y. What is it if you have anything divided by itself? 1. But this is a positive divided by a negative. So what's the answer going to be, everyone? Negative 1. All right, looking at these last two now. This one has 3 terms. When we have 3 terms, we have to set up our double parentheses. So I'm going to have 2 cosine theta, cosine theta. Then I look here, numbers that multiply to be 1 are 1 and 1. When I look at the outers and inners, I have to get a positive cosine. So I'm going to need for this to be plus and this to be minus. So now I set them equal to 0. 2 cosine theta minus 1 equals 0. Cosine theta plus 1, which would end up being this. I'm just taking that over. I'm going to add 1 to both sides. I'm going to divide by 2. And I have these 2 problems to do. So guys, look at this. How I can find this. What does cosine mean again, everybody? It means x. So I'm looking for where x is 1/2, positive 1/2. X is positive 1/2 right here. I'm supposed to find the answers in degrees and radians. So I'm going to use 60 degrees in pi over 3. Now I'm also looking over here, because over here, see how this is also where our x is 1/2? So that's going to be 300 degrees or 5 pi over 3 in radians. Let's go ahead and do this too, before I forget. Cosine theta is -1. That means x is -1. I look at all the x's. Right here's where x is -1. So that's going to be 180 degrees or pi. So here's all the answers in radians, and there's the answers in degrees. All right, number 6. Alyssa, what would I do first to solve this? Good. So I'd have sine squared theta equals 4/3. Actually, guys, this is supposed to be cosecant. Change it to cosecant, not sine. Let me come over here. Cosecant squared theta equals 4/3. All right, what do I do next? Bailey, what would I do? We do. Do you remember what I have to put if I square root it? Good. So plus or minus, and then the square root of 4 is 2, and then the square root of 3 I just leave as radical 3. What do I do if I have cosecant? Switch it into what? Sine. So I'm going to flip it. Sine theta, just flip it. Now we have this. So now you guys find all the places on the unit circle where y is positive or negative radical 3 over 2. Let's do it in degrees first. Sebastian, you got them all in degrees?
60 degrees, 120, 240, and 300.
Good. And we also needed to have them in radians. Anybody have them in radians? Melissa?
Pi over 3, 2 pi over 3, 4 pi over 3, 8 pi over 3.
Good. Colin, questions?
For 5, the key factor is 2 cosine plus 1 and then cosine minus 1. So that one gives you a plus 1 rather than a minus.
We want to get a positive cosine, so when I do my outers, I get 2 cosine. When I do my inners, I get -1, so 2 minus 1 would give me 1.
Okay.
So that is the way it goes. Any other questions? All right. Good job. So